might be a possibility to use other anticoagulants, but the scientific opinions are not aligned yet. And other possible treatments involve immunoglobulins and steroids and plasmapheresis. But at the moment, what we recommend is that colleagues look at the guidelines that are available from, for example, the Hematology Society in the UK or other important societies in their own country. But there is no real treatment recommendation yet possible.
Thank you very much. Now we have a question that came through the chat, which I'm going to give to Dr. Arlett. It comes from Loveday Morris from the Washington Post. If it is plausible that this is an immune response, are there any investigations into whether this is also an issue for similar vector vaccines such as J&J and Sputnik? Dr. Arlett, please.
Thanks very much. The different vaccines use different technologies. And indeed, there are the technology used by the AstraZeneca vaccine is used by others, and of those that are authorised in the EU, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine uses a similar technology based on adenovirus vector. The first thing to say is that during the clinical trials and in the assessment of those clinical trials at the time of authorisation of Johnson & Johnson, there was an early sign of an increased risk of venous thromboembolism, not yet confirmed, but it is in the risk management plan for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. There have been 3 cases with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine of blood clots associated with low platelets, which have some similarities to these cases that we've been describing today for the AstraZeneca vaccine. However, the numbers are extremely small compared to the 4.5 million patients that have been, or vaccinees that have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine worldwide. This is, however, under close scrutiny. The PRAC is looking at it carefully, and I think it would be fair to say there's intensive monitoring of this issue across the vaccines. I think I would leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question in the chat from Aude Le Crubier from Medscape. The question is, I've heard that the way the vaccine is injected could be tied to this rare event, intravenous instead of intramuscular injections. Could you comment on this? Dr. Strauss, please.
Yes, indeed. That has been discussed quite extensively. Of course, the proper administration is intramuscular, but there might be a mistake, and it could be intravenously. But from the experts, we have learned that the amount is so extremely small that that cannot be an explanation for the adverse events that we have seen.
Thank you. The next question comes from Francien Intema from NOS.
Hi, thank you for my question. I was wondering, I read in the press release a possible link with the vaccine. In the press release in the Netherlands, I read it as well, but I hear you talking about a side effect. So I want to be very sure. Are we sure there is a causal link or not? And another question, we got these numbers about the cases, and I would like to know if we can divide it up in men and women.
Thank you. Dr. Strauss?
Yeah, thank you. And indeed, sometimes our regulatory way of talking might be a little bit more complicated than it should be. What we have learned from the review of the very detailed review of the cases, that there is a strong association with the AstraZeneca vaccine and the adverse events. And if we add something to 4.8, then that is a sign that we feel that there is a probable causal association between the occurrence of the event and the administration of the vaccine. So that's a bit maybe a language issue where we fail as regulators. So strongly associated is the word I would choose here. And then the second question, I'm not sure that I understood it.
Male or female? Is there the link?
The link for both. Yeah, for both.
The next question comes from Patrizia Antonini from ANSA.
Thank you. Thank you for the floor. I would I would like to ask you something on Sputnik. I would like to know where you stand on Sputnik assessment right now, if you're launching a probe on ethical problems on trials, if you could give us some details on this, and what will be next vaccine that you will authorize for the European market? What is in the pipeline? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Cook, please.
Yes, thank you very much. And indeed, I think we have announced that we started a rolling review of the Sputnik V vaccine. This means that we're currently looking at the available evidence to see whether it meets the standards we would need for evaluation in the EU. Possibly what you are referring to is that we will be performing good clinical practice inspection in Russia, and this is an evaluation of the way the trials were conducted that allowed the results to be generated. And this is a normal procedure that we follow for many vaccines and medicines, depending on our knowledge of the trials that have been conducted, whether other authorities that we work with have also conducted similar inspections. So it's something that's entirely normal in the context of our evaluation process. Then with respect to the next vaccines that are likely to be authorised, what I can tell you is that in addition to the Sputnik V vaccine, we have two other vaccines under rolling review. That's the CureVac vaccine and the Novavax vaccine. And I have not got a crystal ball, so I'm not able to tell you which one of these, of any of the three, will be first in line. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question comes from Anja Ettel from Die Welt. Anja.
Yes, hello. I hope you can hear me. Thanks for taking my questions.
Yes.
I really have to insist because I still do not understand it, so I'm very sorry. But why did you not recommend a limited use for people under 30, like, for example, as British authorities just have? And what do you expect national authorities throughout the EU to do now? And I would like to repeat the question of one of my colleagues. Could you please divide the 62 cases into age groups and gender? Thanks a lot.
I give the question first to Mrs. Cook, and then perhaps someone else can complement. Yeah. Mrs. Cook, please.
Yes. So thank you very much for this question. Maybe I can mention a couple of things. As we've previously outlined, the regulatory decision on the use of this vaccine is, as described in our packaging information and our summary of product characteristics, and it outlines all the available information we have about this vaccine, what contraindications and what potential side effects. With respect to limitation to a specific population, this is something that we looked at in a lot of detail through our ad hoc expert group, and the evidence that the available incidences that we had at the time did not allow to draw any causal link between the different gender or age groups. In the UK, I cannot comment on what the decision making in the UK to restrict to a certain age was, but I can tell you there's a lot more use in younger age groups in the UK than there is in the EU at the moment, and we will certainly take this into account in our further evaluations. And sorry, I just wanted to add that we will also be discussing. We have been discussing with the national competent authorities in all our EU countries, and we will have further discussions this evening to discuss the outcomes of today's evaluation and also the impact on possible vaccination strategies in the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next question comes from Jennifer Strasbourg from Wall Street Journal. Jennifer, please.
Hi, thank you. So I still don't understand what you're saying about the.
You need to close your micro, your loudspeaker. There's an echo. Please, thanks. Can you try again? Okay, if that is not working, we are going to take you later. So we take now a question from Naomi O'Leary from the Irish Times. Naomi, please.
Thank you so much for taking my question. Dr. Cook, previously you gave some nice figures on the incidence rate of these rare blood clot events in the various vaccines, and I think it was 4.8 in AstraZeneca, 0.2 in Pfizer-BioNTech, 0 in Moderna, but probably because of its low use. Do you have updated figures and also for Johnson & Johnson? And can you also clarify what those rare blood clot cases are? I assume we're talking about CVST and the Splanchik one as well. Thank you.
Thanks. I give this question to Dr. Strauss. She has the updated figures.
Yeah, thank you. For Johnson & Johnson, it was just highlighted that there were 3 cases post-marketing, and I think you mentioned, Dr. Arlett, 4.4 million vaccinated, wasn't it? 4.5 vaccinated, so that's for Johnson & Johnson. For the Comirnaty, we have 35 cases of CVST, and we have an exposure noted at that same moment in time of 54 million. And for Moderna, we have 5 cases of CVST, and we have 4 million vaccinations.
Thank you very much. Dr. Arlett?
Just to complement the data presented by Dr. Strauss, just to mention that the figures on exposure for the Comirnaty, so 54 million, is EEA data, whereas the cases are worldwide cases. The same for Moderna. It's EU exposure, but worldwide cases. I think the other thing that's important to say is that if you look at those reports of blood clots with thrombocytopenia for those other vaccines and then compare them to the background rates we would expect to see, they are not raised.
Thank you very much. We now have a question from Angela Mauro from the Huffington Post.
Yes, thanks for the floor. I wanted to know, you've been saying that people who think they could have side effects, they should report it. Does this mean that you recommend these people to ask their national authorities or the physicians to be injected another vaccine and not AstraZeneca? Could this be possible in the members? Are you recommending this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Strauss, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much for that question, because that helps me to clarify. It's a general request because it's very important. The system relies on people providing spontaneous reports of suspected adverse events, and that holds true actually for all medicines. That is very, very important, and more specifically for all vaccines that are being used. So my request was a general request that if people are vaccinated and they experience ADRs or think that they might have adverse events, then please report them. But actually the request is important for all medicines used, because based on spontaneous data and analysis that we do, we can then identify whether or not the observed versus the expected occurrence is higher, and then we can further investigate. So it was a very general request, and in particular for the vaccines, because they are being rolled out in such a large population in a very short period of time. So we are depending on people reporting adverse events, and that doesn't mean anything regarding a specific vaccine at all. So thank you very much for that question and the possibility to further explain.
Thank you very much. We are also now coming almost to a close. I'm going to take one last question from Lyall Liverpool from the New Scientist. Lyall.
Thank you. So I had two questions, but, well, I'll just read them out. So firstly, what's the incidence of these rare blood clotting events, specifically among women under 60, and how does that compare to the normal incidence rate among that particular group? And then secondly, is the EMA recommending that countries such as Germany, which have suspended use of the vaccine for specific age groups, should resume use of the vaccine across all age groups? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those two questions are for Dr. Strauss, please.
Thank you. The background incidence of the very rare cases of CVST is 1 to 2 per 100,000. What we do have is a reporting incidence. So what we can give is how frequently has the event been reported, and we have the exposure data. And based on that, it's very variable. Like I said, it depends on the way that things are being reported, the way that things are being analysed in the different member states, and that's how we came up with, because in Germany a lot of work has been done, and it seems that they have a very good reporting of these cases, and there we have a reporting rate of 1 in 100,000, but that doesn't mean the incidence rate, so that's a difference. As for the recommendation, or from what I have understood in Germany, it's that they recommend the AstraZeneca mainly for people above 60, and that if people below that age range would like to have it, it's still possible that they receive the vaccine. What we do here with the PRAC committee, we try to provide as much information as possible on the benefits and on the risks that we have identified, and based on that, the pandemic situation in a member state, the infection rate, the availability of different vaccines, the different member states can take different decisions on who to vaccinate.
Thank you very much. I use this opportunity to thank all our speakers, and I want to thank you for all your questions. Please do not hesitate to take a look at our website. We are providing there quite a lot of information also on the safety monitoring and the evaluation of vaccines. So thank you very much and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.